All right, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between and outside, welcome on back to the booth. We are here for our Season 14 kickoff. If I'm too loud or too quiet, be nice to me, I'm sensitive. If any of my lovely co-hosts, to whom I will introduce you in a moment, are too loud or too quiet, you can be mean to them. They're not very sensitive. I'm super stoked to go ahead and get started with us. Sort of run down through these teams. I think it's going to be a ton of fun, and I know that I'm going to enjoy it oh so much more because of my lovely co-host, to whom I will introduce you now in reverse alphabetical order. Vega, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. We're back to one of my favorite times of the year. Booth first episode of the season. Everyone's 0-0. So much, excitement, hope for the season. And happy to be here with my three favorite co-hosts.
Aw, shucks. Valentine, you're next up in the reverse alphabetical order that I was able to do in my head very quickly. How are you doing today, darling?
I kind of forgot that Vega's the second later. I forgot Vega's
Yeah,
name
it threw
one
me off.
started with the V. Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be first, and I was like, wait a second, hold on. But yeah, I'm excited. It's booth time.
It is booth
Yippee.
time. We're boothing it up. So everybody get your orders ready. Les Force, you're last up in the reverse alphabetical order. How you doing today?
Yeah, no V over here, all the way up there at the in the L's. I'm doing good. Telling Vega a little tired. Didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night because I was just painstakingly looking over all these rosters and ready to dive into them here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super stoked to start getting over all these rosters. We have 80 teams to get through, so that is pretty much all that we will be doing today. We're going to be going up, starting in economy, then progressing up through commercial, financial, and then finishing off with executive and CEO. So I am the host, Jackie Boy, and I am super excited to move us right along. So unless there's any further ado, let's go ahead and get started by talking about economy. So I'm going to shift over our little presentation here, and it should be all set. So as you can see on the left-hand side, I have the economy teams listed, and the little number that you see on the left of each team name is their pot number. So there's 4 pots in economy, so they're listed as the first 4 teams are pot 1, pot 2, pot 3, pot 4, etc. And then just like we did last season, but proportionately uh, expanded, we're going to be sorting the teams into 4 different categories. So the categories that we have are the S tier, which are our favorites. That will comprise no more than 1/4 of the group. So economy has 16 teams. There are 4 S tier slots. And then right below that, we have the A tier, which we were going to call the bubble tier. And these are the teams where we feel like they're pretty good. That's just sort of our gut reaction. But we place them just a little bit below these S tier favorite teams, whom we think are most likely to run away with this league. And then after that, we have our B tier, which is our underdog tier. And these aren't necessarily the teams that we think are going to perform poorly. However, they are the teams that we feel like might have a bit of an uphill battle in contending against some of the more well known or the higher ranked teams in the group. And then finally, over here with the purple, we have our dark horse tier. These are the teams that maybe we don't know much about, or maybe what we do know about them is that they are a very sink or swim team. Maybe they've got a couple of pop off players, maybe they've got a couple of coin flip players, me, and so we think this team is either going to be smashing, taking games away from our S tier favorites in the red, or they're going to be dropping games left and right. So we are super excited to start going ahead and organizing all of these teams. So I'm going to open up the floor to my lovely analysts. Starting off with this economy lineup here, what are some of the first things that jump out to you guys in terms of teams, returning faces, returning names, all of that kind of stuff? And we do have a representative from this league on the lovely Panther Corps Aces, Valentine. So how about I go ahead and get started with you? Tell me a little bit about what your initial reactions are being seeded into the Economy League for Season 14 of the LBLCS.
I cannot believe we're in pot 2. I thought we were gonna be in like 3 or 4. But yeah, there are a lot of familiar faces, especially on the kind of econ commercial level. More as we move up, but a lot of recognizable faces
Mm-hmm.
on the econ and commercial level.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Milk making their return. both of their econ teams from last season. You
Mm-hmm.
have OML versus Everybody, which is a rebranded version of Detroit versus Everybody, but a lot of the same core. The Colony features Woofy, Loki Aurora, I Am Yordle, Foolish Sukka, Camped. A lot more recognizable faces there.
Mm-hmm.
NG Outlaws, Sammy's team. Don't need to go much further than that. Rat Kingdom Jarls, being a mash of high alert players, and it's got other pieces like VV Sol,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and among all that, there's plenty of newer faces. So there's so many, I think, interesting places that to go in this group. But I am very, very, very excited to see. I feel like there's an expected top of the group, but there's still a lot of space to play around.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting. And one of the reasons, like when we were talking before the season got started about the different like pots and like ranking the teams, is we don't necessarily feel like pots are as representative of skill level as anything else. Though there will be certainly some correlation from top to bottom with the pots one down to pot four in these examples here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go ahead and solicit. Like, what are some off the bat takes? I'm gonna slam this team in this tier. Tell me a little bit about what these teams look like, and where we might be able to start slotting some of these teams into our 4 proposed tiers.
I mean, I think right away you can probably just start with the Rat Kingdom Jarls
Mm-hmm.
in the
Yeah.
favorite tier. I
Okay.
think
Yeah,
you
yeah.
look at that roster. VV Sol has kind of been tearing it up in econ for a few seasons now. Was on, I think it was like one of the optimal teams a couple seasons ago, and then played for Buggles' team and won the championship. Um, really, really strong AD carry. Pickle hater, been
Mm-hmm.
around for an
Mm-hmm.
eternity. Everyone kind of knows him as like the quote unquote gatekeeper of econ. Like if you can beat him in the top lane, you're a pretty good top laner. And
Mm-hmm.
like if you can't, you got to work on it. But he's got that experience. That boy Truth coming off back-to-back championships in commercial. Like this roster looks really, really strong to me on paper overall, and that's not even talking about some of like the newer players, which on paper would be their like highest point values. So I would put them right at the top.
Alrighty, so we got right off the bat the Rat Kingdom Jarls taking our first S tier slot in season 14. Valentine and Vega, anybody else that you would like to slam into that S tier to contend with the Rat Kingdom Jarls, or would you like to contest Less Force's take?
I will not contest that take because I do agree. I think Rat Kingdom Girl is probably one of the most glaring ones to put out there. I'm going to slam another one into that tier for
Gotcha.
me. When they're on, with the caveat of when they're on, I'm going to put Colony up there just because name value. You have Woofy coming back down into economy after playing in commercial last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a very favorable meta. And you can see if this roster is on, this roster very easily could be a roster that wins.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of named players, a lot of people know from around the scene. I think they'll have good shot calling. The difference is, I think it depends on what Uwufi showing up on this roster. But if this roster is clicking around Uwufi, I could see this team being very dangerous.
Yeah, Uwufi
Mhm.
tends to be one of those enigmatic players where you really never know what you're going to get, except you're definitely going to get fun. So we'll see what happens with the colony. Pickle Hater is mentioning that the Uwufi and Loki combo is dangerous on the Rift, and I would be inclined to agree. These are people that like to go in. They like to keep games pretty bloody, and in economy, honestly, that is probably what's going to win you a lot, is being able to make those pretty crazy aggressive plays and win those fights out to start injecting some gold into the Rift, one way or the other.
Yep.
Valentine, anybody that you would like to slam up into the S tier favorites to start rounding out getting this tier list organized?
Yeah, I think an easy one is OML versus Everybody to go into the favorite tier. They've been a consistently solid commercial team. I think now they've kind of moved, quote unquote, moved down. I think they've been playing together a decent while. They are going to easily be a difficult team to beat just because they
Mm-hmm.
know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We have the unfortunate situation of playing them week one, so I get to report back on next booth and either brag that I beat an S tier team or preach that they are an S tier team.
So
I'm really excited.
So we're gonna get to see pretty quickly what this team is capable of. And where would you put the Panther Core Aces on our lovely little tier list here?
That's a good question.
Their mid laner's insane. I have it on good authority.
Yeah, insane is the word I'd use. Maybe not in the connotation we're thinking of. Uh I think good self evaluation. I'd put us in the underdog position. I
Okay.
know we're in pot two, but I think there is a lot to work on and a lot to prove for us. It's been a very long time since we've had a productive regular season, so I'm just curious to see how it goes.
So it sounds like there's a little hesitancy, but honestly, maybe some glimmers of hope in there too, in terms of
Mhm.
what might show up from that roster there. In terms of sort of trying to slot in some teams into our bubble tier, which is our largest category by far, what are some teams where you feel like they're good, but they're maybe not good enough just as of right now or as of the eye test to slam them into that last S tier favorite slot? And but there are more slots than there are teams, so we won't be filling every single slot. But any guesses that we have so far?
I mean, I think this is like the easy, like for me, NG Outlaws, 2%, these perennial playoff caliber teams that
Hmm.
have had runs. Like I think 2% has Ratlantis and Garo in the bot lane. I think that's really solid. I think obviously like Sammy's team with like Ardo, Ace and them is going to be very strong. They just have just enough unknown that the teams we have above them don't have to where I'm like, I expect these teams to be in contention for playoffs and, competing maybe into the second rounds, but I haven't seen them play enough to know,
Hmm.
if I'm willing to like stake it. But I wouldn't be surprised if, either of those teams were in, deep contention for, championship.
Okay, so the 2% and the NG Outlaws sort of seem like these economy mainstays that have enough experience to keep them up there. Lust Force, it looked like you were had a take that you wanted to add on to that.
Kind of like honestly, just piggybacking off that idea. I'd also throw the tenacious termites in this category. This
Hmm.
is pretty much looking at them outside of Pickle Hater, the same core of the High Alert Legion last season, which were one of the best econ teams, especially early on in the season. They were like really dominant, then they kind of like took a back step and then came back strong in playoffs.
Hmm.
I think that they were a pretty sound unit. They brought in Blackout at support, I think, midway through, and like I remember his rel was like really crazy with Blanco Mamba, who I'm assuming is still in the 80 carry role.
Hmm.
Payne, I actually did a little bit of coaching with last season at one point and thought they had a smart mind for playing jungle.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, I think as of right now, until we see like what the new iteration looks like, I'm not willing to like put them in that favorite category, but I definitely think they much for the same reasons we're talking about with the Outlaws and 2%. I think they fit right in here.
So the tenacious termites might chew their way through the foundation of economy to try to sneak up into those upper rafters there.
Very
Yeah, yeah,
good.
I know
Very
things about building and
good. Very
construction.
good.
Yeah, I'm a real
I like
Renaissance man.
that.
What about some of these teams that maybe are going to round out a bit of our dark horse category? Teams where maybe we don't know enough about them. I neglected to go through and asterisk the teams that are new. There are just so many teams that it was hard for me to figure
Mm-hmm.
out exactly which ones were new. It's hard to remember all the players, but perhaps my analyst can give me a hand. I saw Valentine's Hand and Vegas, so I'll go in that order. Val, hit me with a take.
I think so. Usually when we go dark horse, we're thinking dark horse to like maybe make the playoffs, make a splash. I
Hmm.
think this team is a dark horse to win the whole thing. I think
Okay.
Barbecue Boys
Mhm.
are kind of a mainstay in the league, in and out. And they were a team. I've been in a similar situation as that team where it's you have a player you have a single guy within your friend group who's really good,
Hmm.
and you follow that player up
Hmm.
through the leagues, right? It happened with me. I got to play in financial for a couple seasons because my jungler and my mid
Hmm.
laner, both were hitting Emerald and Diamond.
Hmm.
KXTX was that person for Barbecue Boys. Um, Now KXTX is gone. This team is still someone I think is very fun to watch.
Mhm,
Black
mhm.
Smo and Mystic Shinx are both have been very good. Femboy Fago has also been really solid.
Mhm.
They've had so many good players have great moments across so many seasons. They're a difficult team to count out, so I wouldn't be surprised if they have deep um, player playoff runs
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
just cause so much chaos in these standings because there's a lot of really established names
Mhm.
in this economy.
Mhm.
I could see them disrupting that balance a bit.
Yeah, so maybe like kind of keeping some of the maybe the macro or some of the micro techniques that were sort of
Mhm.
helped forged with their high elo friend. We'll call that like a tree gang team, you know, where we're just gonna follow
Yeah,
our buddies
I'll
up.
die.
You know, he's just pushing diamond. All right, why not? We'll go to financial
Why
executive,
not? Let's play in
all that
financial.
kind of fun stuff. So maybe some of those techniques are going to leak over and allow this team to really punch up. But it's sort of a dark horse in the sense that maybe it's a bit of an unproven variable in terms of will they be able to succeed without their sort of clutch star player. Speaking of clutch, clutch FG in the chat, which for those who don't know, is our founder and Lord and Savior and God and the person to whom we pray every night. Says Cloud 9 to 5. Don't know the team, but the name claps. Yeah, I would be inclined to agree with that. Vega, you looked like you had a take that you wanted to add into the dark horse category. What you got?
Yeah, I think, and I'm trying not to be a homer here. I think Soy Milk kind of fits that dark
Mhm.
horse thing perfectly. Team that didn't make playoffs last year, completely retooled roster, noggin role swapping from jungle to ADC and kind of rebuilding. And there's some
Mhm.
new
Mhm.
names for low budget on that roster. I think on paper they look solid, but I kind of when I think dark horse, that's kind of the definition I think of. A bunch of unknowns that haven't played yet. WLC doesn't have a big name, and then a retooled roster around it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I'd slot them there.
Okay, so the soy milk lifestyle. So you've got two teams here, 2% and soy milk lifestyle, as both representatives from the Milky Sports, which has a brand new website. So you can ask Vega about
Wow.
it, and he
Thank you for
can.
the plug. Thank you for the
Yeah,
plug.
of course. Gotta show love for my fellow org owners. So you can go check that website out. Les Force, what about you? I'm curious, what are some other thoughts that we can start putting into the bubbles, the underdogs, and the dark horses, or if there's somebody that we would like to occupy that last slot in the S tier? Les
Yeah, I
Force,
mean,
what you got?
I've just kind of been looking through like the new teams, and that's always where it's tough because we just don't, we won't know until we see them on the Rift, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But the team that kind of like I guess grabs my attention the most would be I guess and I'm assuming that's Wavy's in motion,
Okay.
WAYVS. They've got a couple like pretty highly ranked players for econ.
Mhm.
Gabe, I believe, is their AD carry. E4 looking really good on like the Ezreal, the Caitlyn.
Mm-hmm,
Kind of these handsy AD carries, even the Callista.
mm-hmm,
Jaximus looks like their jungler. Playing a lot of like Viegos, Zyra, kind of carry oriented champs. Like of the teams that I've seen so far that are like new to the league, I feel like
mm-hmm.
this would be the one that I'm like most confident kind of putting in the bubble right off the rip, just off kind of like that talent, and then kind of seeing like come back in a couple weeks once we've seen a couple series
Mm-hmm.
and check in, see where we're at.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like, yeah, and when we ever get these new teams in, it's always
Mhm.
hard to tell on paper, like exactly how they're going to show up because we haven't seen them play yet. But yeah, it seems like this is a team that it sounds like you think that they have some real capability to start bursting into the scene here. We've got two more teams from Pot 3, and then all the teams from Pot 4. So let's try to get some of these Pot 4 teams slotted in. Ostensibly, just based off of paper rankings, we might slot them into the underdog tier, given that they're sort of on the lower end of the pot spectrum here. But I'm curious. I'm wondering if there's any of these Pot 4 teams that you guys feel like might poke their way into either dark horse candidates or the bubble tier. Valentine, what you got?
Sperm whales.
Yeah, I was
Bubble
gonna say
tier.
Spurs. Yeah,
Sperm whales, bubble
yeah, Sperm
tier.
Miles.
They are deceptive. I think they
Mhm.
have caught they trick you with their low. I was going to say they trick you with their low ranks. That's not entirely
I will not
wrong,
be fooled
but it is.
again by Sperm Miles.
I absolutely will not be fooled again. Maz SP and Flash on D, which is very funny. This is a player named Flash on D last season. Appropriate name now, but um, Maz SP, Dlash on D, both were really strong carry players, right? These two were pretty dominant, and yeah, IDK was a super dominant, like a pretty amazing support. We don't know if there's, so I'm really excited to see where that goes this season. But yeah.
So Sperm Whales maybe has a couple of these standout players where the ranks are certainly fairly deceptive of their skill level in comp. Vega, did you have another thought from a pot 4 team that might poke its way out of the underdog tier?
I mean, Cloud 9 to 5, I think, has a solid rounded out roster, especially like if we're comparing them against like, some of the other teams that I see on their schedule. I think they could be. Also, two big notes. They have a Riot name on their roster, which is great. That's got to be worth something. And Beefy Milk, if you're a free agent at the end of the season, hit me up. I've got an org for you. No, but I think the roster is well rounded out, and just looking at purely on points because I don't know off of competitive history enough about the team, but where their points are allocated would be the points. If I were building a roster blindly, I would want them, right? So
yeah,
I do think also their schedule's favorable for them. So yeah,
okay,
I think they could be a surprise one.
So it sounds like Cloud 9 to 5, bringing in the Riot representative, but also maybe having an easier strength of schedule through the season might show up in a big way. What about these remaining 4 teams? Anybody have a nice thought about Imperial Marauders, OE Arrow, 99 Thieves, and our last team, Only Krugs?
I was going to throw 99 Thieves into the underdog category. Kind of similar deal. New team, looking at the roster, not recognizing the names here, but Captain Clutch looks like not a ton of ranked, but looks like a pretty solid player on paper. Same thing with Jace Bellerin 19. Again, it's just hard when you don't see a ton of like
Good name.
rank games to like
Great name.
base it
Great
off
name.
of. But I think that they definitely look like they have a couple solid players, and so it's just kind of like, what's their roster configuration? Like, how are they gonna like? Are they brand new to comp? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So much like with the Wavies, I'm just curious to see how they pan out, and I'm good with sticking them into that underdog spot.
Yeah,
Okay.
and elite logo. I really like it.
It is
Yeah,
very-
really good.
very
Really good.
We'll have to
I
show it
think-
at some point. Go ahead, Valentine. Hit me with a take.
Imperial Marauders are also a bubble team. I think you have
Yeah.
a lot of strong players who have played many seasons, right? You have
Mhm.
DeChamp, you have Cavino Tocino, Hook Flay Prey, Vader Use Choke, Fluffster. These are all solid players. Kind of a Scud reunion.
A bit, yeah.
almost. So all these teams, very solid. Would not be surprised if they break into the top of the league to kick
Okay.
off as well. And I have a similar opinion on OE Arrow between Kagrin, Mr. Big Shot, Spartan Mason. These are great players who can absolutely. I believe Wildstar is also. I could be super wrong. I think that's SNC Wildstar.
Yeah, I think they won Econ a few seasons
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, and that's SNC Wildstar. So I think it's a solid team that I think is
Yeah. And then we've got our last remaining holdout here with Only Krugs. What we got? Where are we gonna put the Only Krugs? Which is a great team
goated
name.
Insanely good name. I think Frost is actually a pretty good mid laner, at least from what I've seen. I think that they're kind of a perfect like dark horse team. Like, I would not surprise me to see them punch up and get a playoff spot. But we just don't know enough yet. It's a little bit retooled from last season, but they're a good example of where like they have 2 players who I think are really good. That could make a huge splash for this team.
Okay. In that case, we've got 3 little S tier teams over here, and we'll see exactly how these play out. We'll keep the standings in mind as we sort of go through the season and recap how the standings are actually shaking out to be. We've got a good number of teams over here in our bubble tier, a couple of underdog teams who we're expecting to have a chance to make a splash, and then these dark horse teams that keep your eye on them. We'll see what they're able to do. I'm gonna move us a little along over here into the commercial tier. So here we have 24 teams, as we will in in financial as well. Again, they're going to include their pot number next to them. However, with commercial and financial, instead of 4 pots of 4, it's 4 pots of 6. So, off the rip, what are some of the hot takes that we want to add here? Any immediate, off the bat, favorite teams that we see in the commercial league?
Naughty question
I was
mark.
going naughty. I was like,
Yeah, I was like, naughty
It's my
question
team.
mark is a
That's my team.
quick S tier
I think
for
that team's
me.
insane, and the algorithm thinks they're insane too. Just as a
Oh
side
yeah,
note.
the algorithm. Thinking
I'm keeping it in the back now. We're not
quick
gonna
camera, quick
myself.
cameo, quick cameo. Yeah, naughty question mark is a team that it's just a scary team, right? You've got Valve Index,
Yeah.
it's Ty, Rin, Brickachu, Green Leak, so many strong players,
Mhm.
who I don't think will, yeah, who I don't think are going to bend easily.
Mhm.
Perhaps maybe they won't bend at all. They're a scary team to even kind of think about. It feels like they, and this is a very similar 90 question mark team from last season. I think the biggest difference is I think Valve Index is going to, I don't know if Valve Index is starting, but coming into the roster, and no more Katatsu, but they do have Rin kind of to step into that
Mhm.
position.
Mhm.
So I'm really interested to see how that'll go.
Yeah, a bunch of familiar names and a bunch of familiar players. So we'll have to see exactly where the naughty question marks are able to take their role this season here. Any other immediate off the rip? Boom! This is an immediate favorite for commercial.
This is my personal pick.
Okay.
But I think Rat Dojo could be really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really like Rat Dojo. Obviously Sorrow, Accidental Duck, big shout out on the TFT team. But I think that roster's got a lot of like names people know, like Mig, Schmat are both very good, and I think their core 5 looks solid to me. It's hard for me to find areas where I'm like, wow, that's going to be a place they're not going to be able to play through this season. And I think with commercial, how it's kind of like retooled this season as opposed to what people may have thought of commercial last season. There's no more,
Yeah.
high alert, Highlanders and stuff like that. So now it's more open. I think that there's not a clear favorite in my mind, which
Yeah.
leaves that vacancy open for more teams. So teams that were solid last year, or names that were solid, maybe a little bit higher up than they were.
Yeah, Pickle Hater mentioning that Avalanche might get a buff from the standpoint that there's no high alert henchman team to stop them.
Sorry, henchman.
Wow.
Oh my
we'll
God,
have to see
I'm
what
so
happens
sorry.
there.
TV Avalanche obviously is number 1. Can we move them down? I have made the same prediction on the show every season we've done it, which is to pick TV Avalanche to be the number 1 team.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
And
For
I
me,
love it
that's-
every season.
That's my team.
There's a
Those are my
chat.
guys.
I don't know how much you've looked into the rosters of commercial, but there's a pot 3 team
Okay.
called the Blue Buff Bandits. I'm gonna list off some names. You tell me which ones you recognize. We've got Legate.
Okay.
We've got Hunter. We've got even a Ram RS, which I have to assume is Ramirez. We also got a Koi. This is a team of like sort of Serenity OGs, right? That have rematerialized. I'm kind of excited to see what they whip out here because I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I think they'll be a bubble team. I don't know if I lump them straight into favorites, but I am really excited to see what they put together because I like the people on this team.
Yeah, those are some of the original Serenity players from way back in the day, all the way back in the right after Plumber's era. So that there's a lot of a lot to expect from a team with that kind of experience in the competitive setting. Although I mean I say that as being somebody with a lot of experience in the competitive setting, and like let's not talk a lot about that. Alrighty, any other teams, or just like right off the bat you just want to get that take out there? Less Force, I haven't heard from you yet. Any teams stand out to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, going back up into pot one, I feel pretty good about Fifth Spectrum.
Okay.
I
Yep.
think
Mm-hmm.
they were new to the LBLCS last season. If I remember, they did make playoffs in Econ. Snowflake Gecko, I remember, was like one of, if not the best mid laner in all of Econ last season. And now it looks like they brought in two kind of higher point total players that, I mean, again, we won't know if they're playing till we actually see the season start, but
Mhm.
you've got a um kind of these like couple emeraldish tier players which can definitely bring a big boom to the rest of your roster.
Mhm.
And they've been pretty engaged so far in their time in LBLCS. So I feel like they're kind of like in that like bottom of S, maybe top of A tier. Like I think they should be like pretty strong this season.
Okay, let's first sort of putting them on the edge between S and A. Valentine Vega, any comments that you might want to sort of tip the scales one way or the other?
Oh.
No, I like that take a lot.
Okay.
I was like, I love that take. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put them right in this bottom S tier slot for now, and we'll see exactly how the remainder of this tier list shakes out as we have listed our almost a quarter of the teams thus far.
I mean, I'll just jump in with another A team then. Team Backflip. I
Okay.
mean, they've
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
around a super long time. They are always a very good team. They, I think they've at least made it to the second round of playoffs. I think in like 3 of the 4 seasons they've played. They just play really well together as a team. I enjoy Lol, Zach him in the bot lane. They have currently known as Running It Down in the jungle, formerly known as Hylert Zax. And then Nutdrag Swag in the top lane. Like they just play the game really well as a team, and
Mhm.
so they should be a perennial playoff threat for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they know how to play the game the right way. They've always sort of shown up in these playoffs here. It's an exciting team, and also backflipping is a pretty cool skill to have. So they've got some agility with that. Let's see, any other teams that we want to just sort of slot in off the bat?
I'll go ahead and throw Bubble We on the Nile River. It feels
Yeah.
like
It feels right.
Everdingus, yeah, Drox, like those Mighty Fool, all them. It's always kind of like I always consider them the hardest team to scout whenever I've ever had to scout against any of these players. And it seems like they're always kind of the bar of like if you're not prepared to play against them,
Hmm.
they're gonna 2-0 you and you're not
Mhm.
gonna understand why. So I feel like putting them as a bubble team makes sense.
Hmm.
There's a lot of bubble teams.
Yeah.
I feel like
Mhm.
in this division, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna throw in a dark horse.
Okay.
Cirque, Sensei Randalls every season.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
will. It's. I feel like prepping and playing Cirques is basically like a hit and run. Like you just get punched. You look at their op.ggs. And you're like, okay, this makes a little bit of sense. You get into draft with them, and then they just kind of punch you in the mouth with something random, right? You get a Kale jungle for your troubles, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think about that a lot.
Yeah, Strix is always a team that keeps it interesting. I'm excited to see how that ends up shaking out, and always pushes our character limit. So
Yes.
they're the benchmark for that. Uh, any other teams that we want to add into either the dark horse or the underdog category? Those are sort of our less populated categories right now.
I mean,
Um,
kind of similar vein to Cirques, like kicking squids.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Been around for an eternity. They always are kind of in that playoff picture, whether they like sneak in or they're like the first team out.
Hmm.
I mean, I kind of be down to throw them in the dark horse because I mean, literally they could be anywhere. Come the end of the season. Just kind of depends how the team shakes out.
Yeah, I feel like Kickin' Squins is always a team where we've always sort of looked at them and been like, on paper, we're not so sure. And then they're inexplicably consistently in the playoffs picture every single time, which feels like a dark horse team to me. So I'm inclined to agree with that take.
Yep.
Any underdog teams where we feel like maybe they have an uphill battle either as a result of their strength of schedule being particularly difficult, or just not necessarily having as much experience, or maybe we're just not as certain about their ability to contend with some of the top teams that we've slotted in so far.
I'll put Pill County Pirates kind of in the underdog tier, just because I mean, just going purely off like roster, what I'm looking at, their support jungle is their two highest point getters, and it's kind of a gap there where it seems like you have two people that are at least points value very high, and the rest of the team kind of fills in around that. Which, if it works in my head, I'm like, that's great. That's two people two roles who aren't working together very well. That very well could be. But then also you have the other side of the conversation of like, oh, how do the lanes hold up? But I think they're in that perfect underdog of if it works, awesome. That could be a roster that gets into that bubble tier, gets into a playoff spot, and can be very dangerous if the lanes end up working out with it. But I can also see the other side where we just don't know until we see them play.
Yeah, so it's sort of like they got a little bit of an uphill battle in the sense that the at least the LP is not evenly distributed amongst the players, and so it will be sort of on to see like can the two higher LP players really pull the weight, or will they three lower LP players step up to the plate a little bit more? It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Valentine or Less Force, any other underdog teams that we feel like we can just sort of slot in off the bat here?
I've got a hot take.
Give me the hot take.
I think LA Tech varsity is going to be an underdog.
Okay.
Um,
Tell me a little bit about slotting this pot one team into the underdog category.
I think they've been a very solid team throughout their time in commercial. I don't think that's arguable at all. But I do think it's I believe it's a change of hand in captaincy. I think this is one of the first seasons where Andreas isn't the captain. And I also think I feel like this is a different situation than they're normally in. Usually we see a lot of LA Tech almost punching up in their group. I like to think of the season they got into playoffs kind of last second and then rattled off kind of a miracle run. I think they made it to semifinals when they barely made playoffs. So I kind of have to see it to believe it. I do think they're a team that is very much made of miracles. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have a tough start to the season and kind of turn it around and kind of fight into the top end. But maybe I don't know. I'm not sold on instant success for this team.
Okay, Less Force or Vega, do either of you want to challenge this take, or do you guys feel like that logic was pretty solid?
I think that's a solid argument.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel super strongly against it. I feel like there's a lot of these teams in commercial that I kind of feel pretty similar on, kind of in that like, they're good teams. You look at like CLG Wonderkind and Dogs That Bark and LPP Boys, like all these teams kind of in that like pot three. Like they all made the playoffs last season. I actually think CLG and Dogs That Bark had a 3-game playoff series. If I remember, I might have been the booth cast now that I'm remembering.
Oh, that was a lot of fun. I'll have to see if we can do that again this season.
Like these are teams that are definitely like competitive and like they are going to be in that playoff picture. It's just a matter of like, do they punch through that glass ceiling this season? Especially because like Dogs That Bark, like they've been around for a few seasons. I know Linoleum has nightmares about laning against Matt C in the bot lane.
Yep.
So like, I don't know if that'd be like underdog or if that'd be bubble. But like kind of all three of those teams, I feel like pretty similar vibe to each other, and also kind of with LA Tech.
So you had Dogs That Bark, LPP Boys, and CLG of Wunderkind as those three teams that sort of like always hold their own a little bit there. But you're not still exactly certain where they're going to shake out in terms of tier. Valentine, Vega, give me a little bit of a direction here. Where do these three teams really fall when it comes to these categories that we put them in?
Ooh,
well, that's tough. Yeah, because I don't know how you feel, Val, but I always try to gauge, like, whenever we have new seasons, has the relative skill of the league, like, has it skewed up to where I think some of the new teams that are rating highly, now teams that were kind of a bar the previous season, would they shift down into the underdog tier? Or, I mean, I think just based on Less Force explanation of it in my head, I think bubble, because, like, that's the term of a bubble, right? Your bubble playoff team. You're a team that's, either on the edge getting in or not, right?
That sounds pretty accurate to me. Valentine, anything you'd like to add on to that take for these three teams here?
No, I think that's perfect. Honestly, And I do think I'm gonna sneak a favorite in there. Um, throw for me especially throw OML Original Geezers in there.
Okay,
Um,
into the S tier.
feels like yeah, it feels like every
Yeah,
season this team
they're good.
comes with fire and flame. Um, they kind of stomp their way through the regular season. I think the main thing I really want to see from them is kind of see it go farther than that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think they've run into some pretty unfortunate playoff just matchups. Period. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I believe last season they ran into lurkers who gave some business to the team they played after OML as well. Right. That they ran into to a team that was absolutely no slouch.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there is a lot of, but they also almost beat Italy, right,
Mm-hmm.
in season 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're definitely not slouches in playoffs. It's just that sometimes they can get caught off guard. Sometimes they get something different. So I'm excited to see. But I think as far as the regular season is concerned, I'm not worried about them at all. I absolutely expect to see them in the playoffs come playoff time.
Alrighty. Sort of
Yeah.
another pot two team sneaking into that favorites there. We've got one, two, three, four. We've got 5 teams from pots 3 and 4, and I'm curious if you guys feel like any of these teams might be especially notable to keep your eyes on, either because
Definitely,
they're favorites,
you
dark
gotta go ahead,
horses,
boss.
something like that.
I think the Rat Electric Boogaloo to me are like for sure that underdog category team. Because this is a lot of the same faces from DRX that
Mm-hmm.
we've seen in the LBLCS for quite a while. Foreign guy, I mean, he was going toe to toe with some of the best AD carries in financial for seasons.
Oh yeah.
I think he even had a stint in executive. So coming down to commercial, like he should be one of, if not the best AD carries in the entire format. Dyslexic IR, I remember being a pretty solid jungler. Slampus, I remember was like your quintessential like weak side top lane that's just gonna play tanks and not
Mm-hmm.
lose against the Gatatsus and the
Mm-hmm.
Quicksilvers
Mm-hmm.
in financial. Um, so I'm down to see like throw them in the underdog to start, but like expecting them to end higher if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense to
I
me.
agree with that.
Yeah, I think they played an
Yeah.
executive maybe one of the 2 seasons that I did.
They
I remember Foreign Guy like being like that bot lane
yeah
being a surprisingly tricky matchup.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I in the same vein, I'm gonna go dark horse here. Naughty
Okay.
Dogs,
Okay.
easy dark horse team. Any season they're playing, they feel like an easy dark horse team. I don't know what I'm interested in is I don't know what lane someone you don't know is playing
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because I see overheated in the top lane, I see Blue Moon Jelly in the mid lane, and I see Linoleum Happy Death bot lane.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if Turtle Money maybe is in the jungle position or
He's
yeah,
in
someone
chat.
you
So
don't know
he's
is jungling.
jungling. Yeah.
He's jungling. Yep. That's what I thought. I feel like he's gotten sent back into the jungle. Uh, so yeah, this is an interesting team because I think some of you don't know and Uwufi are very different junglers. Um, but they are similar in that they are proactive. So I'm excited to see where this team goes, but they're always a dark horse for me because I always believe in them to make a deep run, and then sometimes they dominate the regular season and then don't get a super deep playoff run, or sometimes they have a tough regular season and then get a deep playoff run, right? So it's kind of a coin flip on what you're going to get from them.
Yeah, and I mean
I like
with
that.
Blue Moon Jelly and Linoleum, easily one of the handsomest teams in the LBLCS. Linoleum
Mhm.
just always a handsome little devil, and Blue Moon Jelly, my beloved former Panther and current Shadow. So
Get a room, man.
definitely, it's really
Get
making the
a
rounds there.
get a room.
Yeah, I think that should go along swimmingly. Any other teams that maybe one of the pot one or pot two teams that stand out to you guys here? We've got the Rat Kingdom Lords, Ribbit Revolution, OE Outlaws, and NG Evokers.
I think NG should be probably a bubble team
Okay.
just off of like some of the name. I think they have, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they had all-star top end jungle from economy last season
Mhm.
that is now moving up into commercial, which I think at least at just face value, obviously jumping into a bigger pool,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit higher rank will be a question of how they do. But looking at the roster, I think it's solid enough to put them in that bubble tier where at the very least, I think they'll be competing for a playoff spot, could surprise and push up.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the nefarious teams normally do decently well. They have good org behind them.
Yeah, yeah. It's and I think that like organizational support, I think like is actually like pretty valuable. Like, and I know that like it's been this way on Panther Core, and I'm certain that Vega and Less Force, you guys can speak to the milk and the volatility experience respectively. But like the higher ranked teams in the org tend to provide like a bit of a coaching or a guiding factor for the lower ranked teams. And so when you see a lower ranked team like a team in economy or commercial that's part of an organization that has teams up in financial, executive, even CEO, there's the chance for that sort of like trickle down economics that actually works with like the skill sort of like trickling down a little bit there. So I think that like that's like not to be underestimated there.
Agreed. I think you see that really in OML. I think that they're like the shining example of it. Like all of us have stuff, but then all of us sometimes have teams where we're like, oh yeah, that was a fun roster.
Mm-hmm.
But OML, like almost, and we'll get into them when we get to the other leagues too. I'm almost always looking at Old Man Land and being like, oh yeah, that team's great.
Yeah, yeah. Prater Zach mentioning that Ribbit Revolution is the remains of TSL from financial. So stepping down from financial to commercial, what do we think might happen to this team here? How do we think that they might fare in this new league with a new system?
I mean, I'm down to throw them in the bubble to start. I mean, they've got some like on paper some pretty high point value players. I don't remember their names offhand from Team Secret Lair, but I mean that was a
Mm-hmm.
financial team that made playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were even maybe the one seed in group A if I remember correctly.
I think they were
Um,
close to. I think because I think Wheeze and Sons was the one.
that's right. Weez and
I
Sons
think.
came on really strong at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean I'd be down to throw them in the bubble to start.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, how do you guys feel about the Rat Kingdom Lords? Like they'd kind of be the last team potentially taking that favorite
Mm-hmm.
slot.
Mm-hmm.
They've got some
Yeah.
they've got some good players. You've got a lot of the players from last season's Lords. BDD. We will not say his name on stream. Chasey B, Alice. These were all players from last season,
Dude,
and they
that
brought
names.
in.
Yeah,
I
that's a
haven't
lot.
read it until now. I didn't realize it had changed, but oh my god,
It's even worse now. He
Hashtag
was so
slurp.
excited
that's
to
way
open it.
worse.
Yeah,
That's way worse.
yeah, he was excited to open the ticket so that Val could have to process it.
That's
Um,
unreal.
Yeah. No
and
comment on
then
that one.
Amanda the Panda and Maxim are also, I think, two pretty solid players being brought into the works as well. I think Maxim is playing 80 carry, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Man of the
I don't
Panda
know.
is sick. They're really good.
Mm-hmm.
I watching Haddle, I've been very impressed.
Yeah, playing in Haddle, I've been very impressed. For those unaware, High Alert, one of our beloved, maybe like the third or fourth or fifth most beloved org in the LBLCS,
They even have a team this season?
showing on. I think they do. I think they do. We'll
They do
see.
not.
They do not.
Okay.
They do not. They
It's in the logo. We'll get to 'em.
Yeah, we'll get
Yeah,
to them.
yeah.
That doesn't count.
But-
Technically,
High Alert decided to throw in a draft league and take that on, so you guys can thank Bear for that. And Blue Moon Jelly, as I alluded to earlier, and Amanda the Panda are two of the players who are on my team in that league, who are going to face off against Lest Force's team in the finals next week. So I'm pretty excited for that. Maybe my first championship. We'll have to see. But yeah, I guess like Amanda came in as like a 7th or 8th ranked jungler into the draft league, and then is now on one of the finalist teams. And I don't know. I feel like Amanda has gotten really really good. Has a ton of prowess on like these tank junglers. Where she is able to really accelerate these lanes, really make something happen. I think that she's a very strong player for sure. Not to glaze my teammates too much. Anyway, I took a couple minutes to do a little bit of donut making and glazing there. So we've got 4 more teams. Let's go down the line here. OE Outlaws, where do we feel like this team might land in our tier list here?
They got my boy Trad. That's got to count for.
That has
Sounds
to
like
be
coming
something.
back.
Yeah.
Coming
Is he
back.
playing this
So
season?
real good. I have no idea if he's playing or not.
Dude, I need him on the Rift, man. I got deceived last season.
Yeah,
I
we got
know.
baited
He
last
didn't.
season. I did this whole spiel in the preseason about it, and then
That he just didn't play a game. I feel like they're probably kind of in that like bottom of bubble, top of underdog. Like
Mhm.
I could be
Mhm.
convinced either way. Got
Yeah.
some recognizable names. They made I think several of these players made playoffs last season in commercial.
Yeah.
So I
Yep.
mean, Captain Ginny's been around a long time, knows what it takes to have a winning team. So yeah, I think like yeah, I like that at the top of underdog.
Yeah, I mean, keep an eye on Jonicus, maybe one of my favorite players, like champ wise, either in support, center support. Just fun, just fun. And Trixu, I believe, is coming up from Town Gaming in economy. So that's another interesting one.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty exciting to see how that team shakes out, especially with Rito Trad,
Please, I need him to be on
the
the
one and
Rift.
only. Spoiled Milk. This is another team from Milky Sports, so we'll avoid the bias. Valentine, where do you think Spoiled Milk is gonna land here in our tier list?
yeah, you're perfect for this. You
See,
played with some of them.
Yeah, I was just like, you tricked yourself. This is
You
two
played
of
with them.
yeah, I was about to say I played with Hoover and Kaz,
Mm-hmm.
and I love these guys. I think they bring an energy to the team. I'm very excited to see kind of how they're able to punch because obviously pot three, but I really do think there are going to be moments where we see Hoover's really the guy I'm excited to see because
Mm-hmm.
like popped off in support position and I think will continue to do so. I'm
Mm-hmm.
really excited to see how that turns because there's a lot of energy there.
Yeah.
So I'm all eyes.
I
Yeah.
have one more thing, which
Go
is
ahead.
their mid laner Hornamornix subbed for Buttermilk last year in financial and
Mhm.
2-0'd and had like a 20.0 KDA in financial.
Mm,
So
nice.
I think points a little bit deceiving on some of the players on this team.
And yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I-
They're just they treat solo queue like it's an experience for them.
yeah, and I remember they won the Milk TFT tourney, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
And then declined to
they were
take my
immense.
money
Yeah.
out of principle.
Out of principle. Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. You could have given it to me, but like it's whatever. Les Forrest, that cycles over to you. Can you tell us a little bit about Open Nexus?
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of insider info. The sources are reporting that Open Nexus should be a pretty strong team. They are new, again, not really recognizing any of the names on
Mhm.
paper.
Mhm.
But in a recent scrim, game one against Old Man Land, who we put in that top of S tier, smoked from 24-2 in the stat line.
Jesus.
They apparently their 80 carry is on paper with some commercial stars that we've seen like Matt C and It's Knox,
Mhm.
who thankfully for the rest of commercial is taking the split off. But apparently Open Nexus should be pretty good. So I don't know if we want to throw them in that like dark horse because we don't know what we're seeing yet, or if we want to throw them in underdog. But one of our favorites in commercial speaks highly of these guys.
Yeah, so that's definitely pretty good information to have there, which just leaves us with one more team, the FBI, the Funny Business Investors. Hopefully they're not getting defunded too bad. Where do we feel like this team is going to fall in our rankings here?
They were a team. I mean, just by the name, right? FBI had a tough season in economy.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think new players, new vibes. Um, and I'm interested to see how they look this season. So I would say underdog. Um, I'm gonna keep my eye on them.
Okay.
I'm interested to see what they can put together, but that's where I stand on them at the moment.
Okay. Anybody want to contest Valentine's point before we move on over to our second 24 team league?
Not with that.
Alrighty, looks like we're all set. In that case, that is all 24 teams from commercial ranked over here. We've got a nice full S favorite tier here, and then we've got an interesting bubble tier with a couple of folks occupying the underdogs and a couple of dark horses to keep your eyes on as we go through the remainder of the season. Pushing on up the LP ladder a little bit, we have another 24 team league. So again, we've got 4 pots of 6, so 6 teams in pot 1, 6 in pot 2, yada yada. Off the bat, anything particularly exciting that we want to mention in financial, either returning names, returning players, returning faces, or immediate hot takes slamming somebody into the favorite tier? Start us off.
Not everybody wants.
Team volatility.
Okay.
Yeah, volatility
Go for
should
it.
be up there. It needs to be in favor.
Volatility favorite.
Volatility
I mean,
favors. Yeah.
Don't really have to cut corners on that one. Less Forest, Papa Doge, Breadwater.
Mm-hmm.
Follow, I believe, back in the top lane. The only question mark with this team is youngster Joey having to roll soft to support. And even then, I think this team will be just fine.
Yeah, it's like reading off an all-star list.
Exactly.
The roster's insane.
This is this is for Vega and Les. You know how there's in 2K you have the all-time teams. This is just
This is like a
all-time.
Yeah, it's an
all-time
all-time.
team.
And we get to week two, Buttermilk Volatility, so me and Les can make some nice bets on the game.
Yeah, I
Oh,
need a
boy.
bet on that game. I need a bet on that game. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can make some of these matchups interesting later on. Also, just to keep some information about these teams, Hawk Tua Herald 2010 comes in, letting us know that Boom What Up is formerly known as Dig Dig Diggers from last time around.
Oh yeah.
Does that
actually-
change anything? Go ahead.
No, I was already going to have Boom What Up in my favorites based on not insider information that I have.
Okay.
But I think that roster's sick. I think that team is cool. I don't want to spoil anything because, whatever. But I do, my own unbiased opinion, think that team is extremely strong. They can do some really cool stuff with their draft and strategies that will be really fun to cast and watch this season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty interesting to get a sense of what's going on there. Any other teams off the bat that we want to slam either into the favorites or any dark horse teams that we want to bring up? Valentine, it's all you.
Yeah, Silver Song Chaos, a mix of Team Chaos and High Alert Nightmares. These guys, monster team. It's just a monster team. Clickbait God, the Banana Man, Boy with Apples, Chance and Jay Cully as well, I believe, are coming in straight in as the bot lane from Team Chaos. And I believe Lettuce is going to be the jungler. Or I don't know if Lettuce is going to be jungler or Starshow is going to be the jungler. I don't know the exact positions. But I know Jay Cully and Chance are playing bot lane. And I think Clickbait and Banana Man are holding down the solo lanes. But I could also be very wrong. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, that's a team I think is super strong and that is going to easily kind of get things going. I'm excited to see how they perform against other pool 1 squads.
Yeah, I think Clickbait is a really strong top laner. So I'm pretty excited to see how that team ends up playing out in this financial league here. Let's force any hot takes that you want to get in off the bat here as we progress through our teams.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at a lot of teams that I think are very much in that they're fringe. Like I don't think I could throw them in the favorites right away, but for sure at the top of bubble.
Okay.
Five Musketeers have been a very strong team in financial for several seasons now. I think that they're one of those teams where the sum is greater than the individual parts. They just play really well as a team together. I think Achilles and 8 times is one of the best bot lanes that I've had to face the past couple seasons. And very similarly, Weez Sons, they were a team last season, came off the wait list, ended up going on a pretty solid run in playoffs. Took me down, which was a little unfortunate. I tried to not let him back in the season, but no, Angel Michael, I remember being a really strong 80 carry. That was for sure the guy you had to prep against. And they're actually the only team that TV has scrimmed so far this season. And they're pretty solid in the scrim as well. So I would for sure be down to just throw both those two teams right at the top of that A category.
Yeah, I'd be really inclined to agree with that. I think Five Musketeers was in my group and gave us the runaround last season. And then Weez and Sons wasn't in my group, but they were one of the teams that I streamed before the season started. I think I remember glazing them on our preseason for season 13, which is on our YouTube channel, so you can go check that out. Valentine, any thoughts that you want to add to our tier list so far?
I don't know. I don't know how I missed this. And this should have been the first thing I said. Team Popo is the dark horse of the season, as they always are.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
I always end up fighting for this team's life and credibility during the season, only to be shunned and turned away. And then they usually, in the end, go just as far as I expected them to.
Mhm.
But I think this is going to be a very difficult season for them because this is a completely different vibe. This is a completely different team. Well, not a completely different team, but it's a different vibe, right? And I'm really, really, really curious about how they'll match up because I feel like this is not the financial of old.
Yeah.
And they were already underdogs in those versions of the league. I can't even imagine the energy that is going to come at them this season. And I feel that way about multiple Pop 4 teams, but I think the Pop 4 team I think can also kind of be considered a dark horse. Mr. Cheddar's party bus full of baddies. I mean,
Indeed,
Great
another one
team.
of these teams pushing our character limits here.
and I mean, come on. That's an elite name with
It
some
is.
notable faces as well, right?
Yeah.
Jeffy from The Gentleman, Mumu's, Hakuna Nakata, Jolston, Jabe, Jacha.
Mr.
I'm not
Cheddar.
saying that other one. Mr. Cheddar himself as well, yeah. Mr. Cheddar.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I think if this team, like, it comes down to Bear, right?
Yeah.
As like
Mhm.
it always
Who's
does.
Bear?
Because if we
Say
get like
his name.
if B3AR TV,
No,
Oh,
I don't know who that is.
The-
I know Mr. Cheddar.
well, I don't know. Well, I don't know if he's the Mr. Cheddar. I think that I think he's one of the
he's-
baddies on the bus. Anyway, like if we get,
okay.
So clean, so clean.
if
so
we
clean.
get
So clean.
if we get Bear from Team Volatility last season in Financial, where he was one of the best tops in like all of the league, like this team can for sure
Mhm.
push that favorite bubble. But if we get the Bear that we saw in Huddle this season, it's gonna be a long season for Mr. Cheddar's party bus. So
That's
yeah,
right.
I have a take on
I
this.
think Steam has high highs and low lows potentially.
Yeah, Vega, go ahead, give us your take.
As someone who has scrimmed Bear profusely, more than any team we've ever scrimmed in all of me being in LBLCS, I have scrimmed, probably not an exaggeration. I probably played 30 games against Bear. Bear excels when his bot lane has pressure. If his bot lane performs this split and they can abuse the fact that he draws so much pressure top lane, even when behind, this team will be insane.
Mm-hmm.
But if his bot lane, or just their bot half of the map, cannot abuse that pressure, then they will struggle because teams will look to punish Bear's aggression and pressure. And if they're not able to play off of that, they will struggle. So I think last year on Volatility, it was great because they had a really good jungler and their bot lane was able to hold up 2v2 against people and they were able to trade things for, even if he was like 0-8 on Scion, he was taking like a tier 2 top. You know what I mean? But if your bot lane is not holding up or your bot half of the map is not holding up, Bear will look worse than he's doing.
Bear is a player.
Yes.
That's all I
the
have.
mirror. He is the mirror.
Yeah.
If Bear's playing against a silver player, Bear will be that silver player. If Bear's playing against a challenger
So-
player, he will be a challenger player.
So he's the ruffian of top lane, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
just mirrors whoever he's. Yeah. Okay. I think another Pot 4. I know we're staying in Pot 4 for a while, but another
That's
Pot 4
fine.
team that I'm really excited to see is Subhuman Resources.
Mhm.
I think this is a really interesting version of the team because their top player is their coach from the last few seasons, Lachlan. I've interacted with him on a couple of different occasions. I'm really excited to see how this team works out now because I think I've always thought subhuman resources punches way above their weight, and will always surprise you with how they perform.
Mhm.
And I don't think this is any different.
Mhm. So where do
So
you think
I'm
that they
really
fall on
excited.
our tier list here? If you had to guess, give a take.
I go underdog.
Mhm.
Because I have to see Lachlan technically hasn't. I've never seen Lachlan play with the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know, Genesis, Sentient
Mhm.
Trash, Carly Slay Jimson,
Mm-hmm.
Such good names.
Speshka.
Yeah,
Such good names.
Carly
Such
Slay
good names
Jepsen
on this
is
team.
pretty
I
top
think-
tier.
That's like tier
I
one.
do
Like,
I do miss Goblin F14E01.
No, no, for
but-
sure. Not.
nah,
I mean,
Definitely
like, come
not,
on,
definitely
right?
not.
Definitely not. Come on now.
I'm
But
kidding.
yeah, Lachlan. I'm really excited to see how Lachlan plays with the team. Excited to see Genesis back on the Rift, Sentient Trash, Carly Slay Jimson, Sepeshka,
Mhm.
and just see who they put together. I think they're an underdog team, and to join them, four Finboys and an E-Girl. Great team name.
Yeah.
Amazing team name.
Amazing team name, led by Rescued. Very excited to see where this team goes.
Genesis with the heat, Goblin effort, putting in the Goblin effort. Absolutely
That's
was
actually
the
so
case.
good.
So it was pretty
That
damn
is so
good.
good, dude.
And also mentioning we're underrating their team. Well, there's nothing we love more than being wrong, and maybe it's Stockholm syndrome because we're wrong in terribly public and traumatic ways all of the fucking time. But every time we put a team in underdog or dark horse or even in bubble, and they punch up and start taking names and kicking ass, then that is something that really makes us very excited. So
Mhm.
it's all good. We will be excited to see you guys prove us wrong.
We want chaos.
We do.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
we want chaos.
That's really all we want ever. What about pot 3? We actually haven't slotted any of the 6 teams from pot 3. So where do you feel like some of these teams might slot in? We've got a couple of org representatives and a couple of returning faces.
I think we just start with Vegas team, right? Buttermilk.
Yeah.
I think you just throw them right into that bubble. They've played several seasons in Financial. They've made playoffs every season of Financial. They've been a not fun team to see on the schedule. They play a ton of games together. I think if Vega can correct me, like they've played for several years as a group at this point.
Mm-hmm.
They do a ton of
Yeah,
scrims. Like they are for sure a really good team.
We are the Steelers of the LBLCS. We will make the playoffs every season and lose in the first round every season. So we are the definition of a bubble team. We're on the other end of the bubble, but I keep my job by getting us to playoffs. And then we're disappointed, and next year we're going to do it differently.
Well, maybe this year you guys can do something differently. I remember scrimming against you guys, and you guys are a strong team. You guys have a good bot lane and a good setup there to win. So I'm pretty. I have some high hopes there. Pappy Doge. Well, let's talk about the rats. Why not? Let's talk about the Rat Kingdom princesses. This team. What do we think about where they might fall into our tier list?
I mean, they went through a lot of changes in the offseason. I think this was a team that was like on paper planned to be a commercial roster, and then they shifted around, brought in some new players, and all of a sudden kind of found themselves like punched up into financial. I mean, a lot of players here that I like, right? Like Frog Guy is my goat, and they play an 80 carry now. Kiale, I mean, these former High Alert members. You got Rucha, who's really kind of like, I don't think developed is the right word, but certainly in like the last like couple of months, I think it's really taken some steps in the support role and is like can more than hold their own. I think in financial at this point. I mean, I'd be down to throw them. I mean, again, it's kind of like one of those like fringe. It's either like they're in the bubble or they're like top of underdog. Like I'd be fine. What are we doing with this pick? Sorry, I just got totally sidetracked.
Oh, pendant. No.
Yeah, I like putting them at the top of underdog if for no other reason than to sort of light a fire under their asses. Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting team to watch. And I would probably unironically categorize them as underdogs. In that regard, as well.
I think another underdog team would be Needlessly Large Rods.
Okay.
I think it's been an interesting few seasons for the team. I think they've had the high highs, they've had lows. I know they had a strong season 12 that kind of ended sooner than later, or sooner than they wanted. And I think their season 13 was definitely didn't go the way they wanted.
but they're coming back in. Faelation's no longer on the team, but they've got kind of the original core of the team: Healy Wheelie, Tar Heels, Illuриus, and Dizzy Dave are kind of here. They're the core of the team, and I'm really interested to see how it goes from there because I think they have shown they've got the ability to punch and punch hard, but they have to prove that they can do it in a different format. I'm interested to see if they can hold up.
Yeah, we shall certainly see what happens. Looking over to pot 2, where we still have 4 remaining teams, we've got another representative from OML, and then a few teams with some. I want to say I've seen some of these names before, but not all of them. So where do we go for these pot 2 teams to start slotting some of these guys over into our tier list here?
I definitely think OML's a bubble team. I think that's a team with some names people know. They're pretty standard, pretty good team fighting team. I think that this format's pretty good. Another example of like an org where, Omelanda's very good of like having their team set up and things like that, and not to leak any scrim results, but they're solid team, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would talk them there.
Yeah. I mean, you really have to respect Glacial Facials. He's basically going to be painting the Rift with his opponent's blood. And
Don't love that as the week 1 opponents for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, but they also, I think there's a second reason to be scared. They got Praetorian.
Yeah, they do. Admin Praetorian himself.
Admin Praetorian. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's going to be riding the bench, but I'm excited to see what vibes. I think he's going to bring the right vibe to this team. So curious.
Yeah, I think it'll be sort of exciting to see how this team ends up shaking out, especially sort of given the week 1 matchup and sort of seeing immediately how these things start to how those sort of puzzle pieces start to fall. See if our predictions end up holding up, or maybe if they just all go to shit week 1 like they usually do. I want to talk about Blue Lobster. Rather, I want you guys to talk about Blue Lobster for no other reason than I just really like the team name, and it's sort of hanging out as the top team in pot 1 here that we haven't really yet touched. What do we think is going to happen with this team? Do we feel like we can give them that last remaining letter for their name and put them in the S tier, or do we feel like they maybe fall somewhere else?
Hard.
That was pretty. Hey, you got to give me that one.
That was good. That was good.
That was really good.
We don't know a lot about Blue Lobster. They're in their newer team, but also I would be pretty confident putting them in the favorites tier. I think they're gonna come out. I think they're gonna swing. I think one of the mistakes I feel like we made, last season was that we were like, we don't know who these guys are. We'll put them in bubble to be safe. And then Girk's crew and Weezen Sons and what was the other one? And Omega Gaming just like rolled through their division. And I will never make the same mistake again. I'm gonna give these teams the credit they deserve. Blue Lobster looks fucking terrifying, and I'm excited to see how they hold up.
The unwanted redeemed bear facts with bear for 500 schmeckles.
Here, hold on. I've got frog facts.
Val is gonna give us some frog facts. Hashtag FGGY. And while Val is pulling up a frog fact, we've got a couple more teams from pot 4. Why don't we slot these 2 teams in? Let's start with undetermined team name. Where do we feel like this team might slot into our tier list before we head into our frog fact with Val?
I'm gonna say Underdog.
Okay.
I think that's a team that has. I think as a team they play pretty well together. I think that their jungler can be very good. At least from what I know, plays a lot of different champions, has a lot of pop-off style, and their team kind of goes the way their jungler goes, right? If their jungler's having an insane game, if they're popping off, if they're kind of leading the team around the map, they do very well. I do wonder though, because Financial is kind of a lot of really good junglers in this group in here, and I haven't admittedly looked all the way through their schedule to see everybody they're matching up, but I think that they're a team where pot 4 does a little bit of disservice to how good that team can be. I think they're definitely a team that can punch up.
Yeah, I think that might end up being the case. Go ahead.
When launched by their long legs, many frogs can leap over 20 times their body length.
But their body length isn't super big, so like
it isn't. But
I mean, I can't leap 20 times my body length, so like I can't leap 20 feet.
That's 20 times your body length.
Yeah.
You're 1 foot.
Yeah. Oh, like height?
I mean,
Oh,
It's 20 times your body.
yeah.
Like
Sorry,
It's multiple.
yeah, I got that one mixed up. We've got one more team in pot 4. We've got Italy 2.0. Where does this team fall into our little tier list here?
I think this is
Way
like
less
the
worse.
quintessential dark horse team.
Okay.
I mean, they played not last season, but the season before in commercial, and they came in as like the wacky, like we're gonna play Draven mid and Jin mid and like
Mhm.
Fiddlesticks top, and I think even I think Mr. BDD played like Glacial Augment Scion Jungle at one point, like a whole bunch of debauchery,
Hmm.
and it got them to the semifinals in commercial. Then they took the season off, and now a lot of that core is back, but they got slotted up here into that pot 4 financial, and I need to see like where the team's vibe is at, because like having a little bit of insider info, like they started the season trying to take it pretty goofy, and then they realized like, oh, we could be pretty good if we like start taking it seriously, but there was kind of like a identity crisis. um I think if they keep up the wackiness and like keep it serious, like they can for sure take down some of the top teams and like maybe punch up in their above their weight class. But I just gotta see it first before I like buy in too hard.
Yeah, that sounds like a bit of a dark horse ranking to me too. Vega and Valentine, anything you want to add regarding Italy 2.0, or any other teams that you want to pull out of our remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that we have left to slot in financial?
the Globetrotters.
Yeah.
Um,
Fun.
a really good team. Especially they were pretty strong the last time we saw them. I believe, and someone can correct me, I believe the concept of the team when they first joined was basically trying to complete the Globetrotter Challenge in LBSS. For those who don't know, that's in League, it's when you win a game with 5 champs from the same region.
Oh, cool.
I think that's why they initially joined. I think obviously it expanded beyond that.
Mhm.
Brachio's pretty awesome person. Um, and I think they have a strong roster that's played together for at least for a decent while. So I think they have the chemistry. I think they have the experience. I'm just interested to see how well they can punch into some of these top teams because there's a lot of a lot of people are. I think a lot of people expect a lot of teams to do well, if that makes sense. So I'm curious on how that'll turn out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always appreciative of people who like to come in with a shtick or a gig and trying to do a Globetrotter challenge in LBLCS does sound pretty fun. Where does this team fall, do we feel, in our rankings here? This is sort of the first time where we've had a bubble tier not be the largest tier.
Yeah. I would say that they're in the bubble though. Absolutely say they're in the bubble. I think they
think
hold a solid spot there.
More of these teams probably should fall in the bubble that we're going to be rating soon.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
also, 16 of 24 teams make playoffs out of financial.
Right.
So it's a big bubble.
Yeah, it is a big bubble. Any team that we want to talk about from pot 2 here, we've got Finland Feed, Royal Blue, and Shadow Rose. Any of these start to help us round out our bubble?
I mean, you've got some recognizable names on Royal Blue Esports. Think for people that have been around a long time, you'll recognize some names from like the BYU esports teams that like I remember my first season in the league. They
Oh my
won all of
God.
financial. You got the Brad Dad, Zelda Girl. I think played executive a couple seasons ago
Mm-hmm.
for like a BYU Royal.
Yep.
I think was their team name.
Mhm.
Like a lot of these players have played in the league before. And again, they've done well in the past. So like I'd for sure just throw them in that bubble just to get started. Yes, Papa, but Brad Dad is in
Yeah, I was.
financial.
Yeah,
I
Brad
didn't
Dad in
even-
financial.
I missed. Brad Dad in financial is a dangerous man.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a player to watch for sure. I think Brad Dad may have knocked me out of playoffs two seasons in a row in executive, which I think was finals both times.
Yeah, I was like in finals.
Is Brad's Chads and then Andaloth's Cloths. So I wish him nothing but the best. Any team? We've got 2 more teams from Team 1. We'll just go 1-3-2, 1-3-2 to finish off our rankings here. So we got Beer and Snacks and the Manorites.
Beer and snacks.
Tell me about them.
S tier.
Boom.
slap them.
Yeah.
I think they're good. They had to punch up. They've had to punch up a lot in their last 2 seasons of the LBLCS. I
Mhm.
think they got stuck into one of the most difficult groups
Mm-hmm.
in season 13, and then season 12 they were in executive, where it felt like the team structure was one that we've discussed already, where it was like, oh, you know, uh, we're kind of just playing with our friend, and our friend happens to be like Masters, right?
Yeah.
And now it feels like they are here, they are primed, the roster feels well rounded. It feels like they're going to come in here and give people some motherfucking issues. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a scary team there. We've got only Pot 1 teams in our favorites tier, and I'm curious if any of our remaining Pot 2 or Pot 3 teams might take that last slot, or if the Manorites are going to fall into the bubble tier, and we're not going to have a full favorites tier. If there was going to be a team from our remaining 4 here, from Fresh Start, Sisters of the Loam, Shadow Rose, and Fail and Feed, which one would be the one to punch up above its sort of pot value, if it were?
I like the vibe of Fill and Feed.
Okay.
I believe Rafa Mao, who is the highest rank, who's the captain, the highest point value, played in executive last year. The team name is leaving me though. It was the one with the clown.
I'd honk to that.
I'd
I'd
honk to that.
I'd honk to that.
Amazing name. Jesus, I forgot about that. Yeah, I would put them in the favorite. Vibes are good. But
That's
yeah.
yeah. I was also gonna shout out Phil and Feed. They got a couple of those like low diamond players. Again, Rafael was a coach, I think, in like NACL qualifier tier. So like
Mhm.
they should be very good in financial. Whereas like last season they played in exec, which is obviously a tougher ball game, right? So they should be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how that goes. Vega, tell me about one of these 2 remaining tier 3 team or pot 3 teams of Fresh Start and Sisters of the Loam. Where do you feel like pick one and slot them in for us?
I think Sisters of the Loam could be a bubble team. I think on paper, Asuka's pretty solid player, and their rank distribution is pretty good. I think they, similar to like other teams we kind of have in here, like OML, Buttermilk, Weezen Sons, things like Weezen Sons kind of on the upper end. But I think they're a team that just at a base look can compete. They have like clear, like through their point value, you can kind of see where their strong points on their roster at a glance are. And I think their schedule is decently favorable. I think they're a team, especially top 16 get in. I think they're definitely a team that you only need a couple of wins to break into that bubble tier, and I think they're in that.
Okay, so the Sisters of the Loam kind of kicking out there. Let's first tell me about one of the remaining teams that we have here. We've got one from 1, one from 2, and one from 3.
Yeah, I mean, I can comment a little bit on Shadow Rose. I know a couple of the players on this team from our time in the Blue Otter Draft League. Unwanted Soul and Brady were a couple players that had to play against. Unwanted Soul actually took my spot on the Fabled Cheesers late last season. I think if my memory serves correct, these guys did play in like another league. I think it was in Meta Shift last season, or at least like a lot of the same core. I think it's having that comp experience. Like looking at the ranks on paper, like there isn't like that standout like diamond carry, right? But there's like you have a lot of like solid pieces. It's like I'd be down to like throw them into like that underdog to start.
Okay, so Shadow Rose sort of slotting in there, and I want to say we've got a few folks from that team as first time chatters. So welcome to the LBLCS. Welcome to the booth. We're excited to have you here, and we are waiting to see you guys prove our underdog predictions wrong and end up being a strong team in there. So that takes me over to Valentine. Pick between the Manorites or the Fresh Start, and tell me where they slot, and then Vega can slot our last team before we head into the upper echelons of executive and CEO.
I think minorities is an easy call for
the Manorites.
The Manorites?
Manori- oh,
God,
I guess, but the
all-time
minorities
booth
is
moment.
like yeah, the Manorites. Solid team. I think they'll be easy to kind of. I think it's the safe pick to put them in bubble.
Mhm.
Obviously, we don't know a bunch. I definitely don't. Uh, but I think when you, especially in the pot one, you're gonna get great practice against the teams you play. Um,
Mhm.
while I do think there's kind of more pressure for you to be solid.
Mhm.
I don't think that'll be an issue for them. I don't know. The vibes are right.
Yeah. Fig saying, "Yo, S tier, what the fuck?" There's no way that this is your first chat on the LBLCS stream, but welcome to the
I
stream
believe it, actually.
as it wears. Um, yeah, I agree with your rationale for that one on what apparently we're calling the minorities, which feels like a recipe for a public relations disaster. So we'll can that one as we're going on. We're gonna move on to Vega to help us slot our remaining team of a fresh start.
I think for a fresh start, it kind of just depends if you're an Asuna believer or not. I would slot them in bubble tier because I think Asuna's a sick player. But it really is just, how does that roster form around that? How does the roster form around Asuna? And I don't know offhand. I haven't seen them play yet, or seen any behind the scenes insider knowledge. But I think it's safe. I feel comfortable putting the bubble tier just based on the ranked and my knowledge about Asuna.
Yeah, I think that's when you have like the recognizable players or like knowing that a player or somebody who's involved with the team in some type of way is a particularly powerful measure. I think that's pretty cool. I'm gonna go ahead and give
They
my
have.
go ahead.
Oh, hold on. They have the Shy and Zeus, but I mean, like,
The
the Shy's
shy,
kind of.
yeah, I was like, dude. I was talking to my friend about this the other day. The shy's kind of like bad, Like, can we
He
be
was
real?
always the Nicolas Cage of League,
Oh my
simultaneously the
god.
best and worst top laner.
That's a crazy way to phrase it, but I get it.
Yeah, holy shit! It all makes sense now.
Before we push on over to our top tier leagues here, I'm going to go ahead and say that these three dark horse teams are going to be probably some of the most fun teams to watch.
Yeah.
That's going to be my take right
Yeah,
now.
I agree with that.
I think it's pretty uncontroversial. But anyway,
Actually, I disagree.
well,
Oh,
fine.
because
Why
I'm kidding,
not?
I'm kidding. We've made it this far.
Let's make it
Yeah.
interesting. All right, so those are our teams from financial. We are well over the hump. Bear says that he will be 0-10 or 10-0, no in between. As a fellow 0-10 or 10-0 player, I completely respect it.
You're 10-0 support. Something's gone wrong, no?
I mean, hey, if you watched that game 3 in the series last, I got a triple kill on Rel
Ooh.
somehow, so that was kind of fun. So we've got a nice full favorites tier here, a few interesting folks in the dark horse, and then some folks rounding us out in bubble and underdog. Now let's go ahead and push into executive. So executive and CEO were originally going to be just one league altogether, and then we ended up splitting them into two leagues of 8. So here we have executive, which is league 1.5, as it were, and then so we're back to our standard split of teams here. So we should move along nice and quickly. Off the rip, what are some of the takes that we have about these 8 teams here in executive that we want to get out into the airwaves right off the bat?
let's not cut corners. Put KFC in S tier, man. I'm not. I'm not playing with anybody, man. I'm not playing with anybody. I don't care. I don't care what you believe, who you believe in. This team is KFC only loses to themselves, which is and what I mean by that is if I remember correctly, both the roster feels is constructed from the same pool of players. And Howdy Chef, the first team to dethrone KFC after a couple of insane seasons,
Mm-hmm.
um, would later basically field the same team to the players on the Howdy Chef team had also previously played on KFC, So
Mm-hmm.
the statement that KFC beats themselves is basically,
Yeah, yeah. That group of players
Yeah.
is just permanently lethal in competitive settings. Lunari asking, what is this? I just got here. Lunari, we are going through every single team. We've gone through economy, commercial, and financial, and now we're here in executive where we're giving our hot takes, sort of sorting the teams into different categories. We've got our favorites tier, which is at most a quarter of the league, who we expect to be particularly strong. We've got our bubble tier. These are the teams that we expect to do decent, pretty comfortable saying that they're going to make playoffs. The underdog teams, these are the teams that we expect to maybe struggle a little bit more to find success either as a result of a strength of schedule issues or something similar to that. And then we've got our dark horse teams, who are the teams that we feel like are either particularly coin flippy, particularly interesting to watch, and all that kind of fun stuff. And if you want to go and see and hear any of our takes that we've had for economy through financial thus far, you can make sure to stay tuned to our YouTube channel, which should be linked somewhere in the links below the video. The VOD should be uploaded sometime today. So you can go back and check that over. And maybe somebody with more permissions than me can add timestamps to make it a little more easy to follow along. With that being said, there are a bunch of other teams here. I think I recognize it's like 6 out of the 8 names in this league here. So tell me a little bit about some of the other teams here. Any other hot takes that we want to give off the bat, either Valentine or Less Force?
I can go. I think Big Dig Secret should be one of, if not the best team in this group. Looking up them on paper, you've got a lot of. I guess this is like a hybrid between Team Secret Lair and Big Dig Secret from last season. Jojo Pure, I remember, was like a really, really strong jungler in Group A of Financial, and then Praetor Zach. I think they played top lane, but they were like almost a Masters level mid laner. And I think they're going back to mid lane this season because they're part of like the mid lane academy. Coach Curtis does. I know that much. Horticus, I actually played in a tryout with Horticus a couple times for a different team. I think I saw they're going top lane, but they were also like a pretty strong mechanical player. And I definitely think like this team should be a really strong contender if that mishmash of players goes well together. Because again, you're bringing 2 teams together. There's no guarantee that they're gonna like click right off the bat. But if things click, I would put this team above KFC. And I know that Val's gonna get a little heated for that, but I don't know. I just I'm not looking at nameplates here. I'm looking at the the talent on the paper.
Val, care to respond?
Do what you will. Do what you will. Wherever your heart takes you. Yeah.
Vega, would you care to be the tiebreaker here? Which team is going to take the top of our favorites here?
It's like asking you to pick between your parents. Yeah, I'm gonna go Dig.
Dig over KFC?
Yeah.
Okay.
If for nothing else, to add fuel to the KFC when Val comes back and says, "I told both of you." Even though I did not make a case for this. Yeah. And it made Jack have to copy and paste more than he would have had to copy and paste.
And I've been really accurate with hitting Control C and Control Shift V this whole time. Don't worry about any of the times I've accidentally managed to hit Inspect Element 7 times thus far. So anyway, what about some of these teams that we might slot into the Dark Horse category here from our remaining 6?
Dark Horse?
Yeah.
Yeah, Monkeys.
I was gonna say, Monkeys to me feels like the team. One of those teams that I feel like is slowly gaining a reputation for just being great. Like great on the riff, great people, good vibes. And kind of the same group of players every single season. So I am very excited. I think they're pretty solidly a bubble team when you have teams with strong chemistry like that have been playing together for multiple seasons. I feel like they could get a solid placement as long as they're not entirely out of their depth rank wise. And they're one of the higher rated teams, at least point wise, in executive. So I think they're going to put up a great fight. They're going to have a great season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty exciting to watch this team. This team has been around for a while and has always had a pretty decent amount of success. So I expect it. Less Force, any takes that you want to add to this situation?
No, I mean, I think, Monkey's been around for a couple seasons. I think they actually pushed semifinals last season, if I remember. I think they'll be super good. I think, don't think we've talked about Omega yet. I think we have to pivot over to them.
Mhm.
They also made semifinals, and it was actually a bit of an upset that they didn't. I don't want to say it was an upset they didn't win the whole thing, but I think the vibe around playoffs was that Omega was going to win all of financial last season.
Mhm.
Now I don't think that Princeton is starting this season, if I
Yeah.
understand correctly. So they
Okay.
will have to pivot a little bit in the mid lane. But you've still got oh, I'm trying to remember who was where. I think it was Super Chase top, Simulcrum, Jungle, Adjustment, and Concrete in the bot lane.
Mhm.
Um, so you have almost all of the same core, and you can find a mid laner with hands to like fill that role, right?
Yeah.
So I think they're for sure kind of at that like that A plus, just on the outside since we've only got those two favorite spots.
Yeah, it sounds like you feel like this might be one of the teams that's most likely to take a slot over KFC or Big Dig Secret.
Hmm.
Vega, any takes about these remaining 4 teams that you want to add, or would you like to contest any of the takes that have been discussed thus far?
No contesting. I do think Crustacean Nation for me is a bubble team. I think a lot of people will look at their rank thing and talk about Big Mo because it's the highest points value, but I actually think Zeno, their jungler, is insane and is a big carry jungler player. And I think that in a league where only top 4, I believe, only make playoffs, right? So
Mhm.
every game in this division, some of the other ones you have a little bit of leeway with like play and stuff like that. But in this and the next division, every game is going to be super important. I would say having a big carry jungler as one of your like primary things, especially in higher elo, matters a lot. And I think that this team could surprise people.
Yeah, I think it's going to be I think executive is going to be a really exciting league to watch. There's been some chatter about it in the chat. We've got to talk about Coffee House, the return
Yeah.
of our caffeinated friends. Tell us a little bit. Anybody want to slot them in for any specific tier, and give us a little bit of rationale and a little bit of history on this team?
That would have been my second favorite team,
Hmm.
but I could absolutely see. I kind of see them being a dark horse.
Okay.
They are, obviously they are one of the many teams. I feel like there's a lot of teams in this division that have like players who have played together for a long time, and they are no exception. They've been playing since season 6, right? Of the LBLCS. They
Hmm.
dominated the
Hmm.
first iteration of financial, and ever since they've been a mainstay in executive, literally.
Hmm.
Um, and while they haven't found a title again, they've been perennial playoff contenders. They've been solid, solid, solid anytime they have long and strong seasons. Um, think about me every night, oh. Um, anyways, blue card hype, a terrifying player, and when you mix kind of that X factor player with a amazing foundation all around, I think you have a recipe for success, especially with Coffee House.
Yeah, I think they play really well together as a team, and like you mentioned, these players are particularly strong and also very friendly people. So I enjoy that too. Let's get we've got 2 more teams here. We've got Rat Milk Lifestyle and Doc's Doggies. Let's force pick one of those, and then Vega can give us some takes on the other one.
Well, so I'll spare Vega so he doesn't have to be biased. I'll go with Rat Milk, although I'm like equally as biased, I guess, in a sense. It's got my boy Zodiac in the mid lane. I think this team is for sure in that underdog in the underdog category for me. You've got I think this is a lot of the pieces from like the Strawberry Milk.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Strawberry Milk last
Yeah.
season in financial? Didn't it was a competitive group in Group D. I think they were like the first team out of playoffs, if my memory serves correct. We got
Second.
Sonora. Was it second? Sonora. Another name that I don't think that Praetoria wants me to say on stream. Couple pieces from the Strawberry Milk roster. You've got Zodiac and Just Bow coming over from the Rat Knights. G's the Ninja, I think, is gonna be the starting AD carry from a couple seasons on Team Trash Pandas, and I think they've like pretty consistently been like the shining star from that team. Um, I think this team should be pretty solid, and I think they're definitely like one of the big benefactors of like kind of the split that ended up happening with the like League 1.5 and League One. I think this team really benefits from that because I certainly think they can hang more than hold their own against Team Fried Chicken, Coffee House, Omegas, teams like that.
Mhm.
But I'll put them an underdog for now.
Yeah, I think underdog, and like you're saying, like one of the motivations for the split between League One and League 1.5 was to give us a little bit more parity here at the top tier of the LBLCS, and we we like being able to make these types of adjustments for our players. So that leaves us with Vega telling us about Doc's Doggies. I believe this is Dr. Respawn's team, so tell us a little bit
It
about
is.
where this team falls in.
I think this team will be a fan favorite. Definitely a team I'll be rooting for this season. But I think similarly, they're going to fall in the underdog category. Kind of similar to Rat Milk. They're a big beneficiary of the splitting of executive and CEO, I think. And they're going to kind of be a prove it team. I think, there's definitely some right points on the roster. Piglet, TSM Spike, all like decently high point values. But similarly, I don't think there's any part on this team where I would be surprised to see them slip in as a bubble team. It's like a 4 seed, 3 seed, something like that. But similar to the things that Les Force said about Rat Milk, I think it will be a prove it roster. And we'll just have to see.
Valentine or Les Force, anything you want to add regarding Doc's Doggies?
No, I mean I'm just interested to see how. I mean, again, relatively bigger name in the like LCS LTA scene. I'm curious to see how their first time in the LBLCS goes.
Yeah, it's exciting. I feel like we got like our first like League Twitter celebrity in here in the LBLCS, so I'm pretty excited to see how that plays out. Okay, so that gives us our executive teams here. We've got a Big Dig Secret and Team Fried Chicken taking the top tier slots there, with our teams to watch being Monkeys and Coffee House to see how they are able to really make a splash in these standings here. Pushing over to CEO
Get it?
tier. These are pushing over the
Get it?
C tier. These are the big dogs, as it were. This is where I am hanging out on for reasons that are who even knows. What are some of the first reactions that we have off the bat to the 8 teams here that we have representing CEO?
There's not any
Lanes, Zero,
specific team.
Eaters of Brew.
I just want to see Bondi
Oh.
versus Seer.
Yeah.
I do just want to
I
see
just want
Bonnie
to see
versus
Bondi
Seer.
versus Seer. Like
That shit is so fire.
No team like right now I'm rating just Bondi versus Seer immediately was like that. This was gonna be sick.
Yeah, it's
What
gonna be
week- hold
interesting.
on, let me
I
find
think
what week that is.
I think Seer is we're figuring out our roster exactly, like who's gonna go where.
Like,
So
wait, are you supporting?
He's
Wait, are
playing
you
jungle?
I'm support. So he
Oh.
was either playing jungler or AD. We're still figuring
Maybe
it
we
out,
need to-
but
maybe we need to swap
maybe for
AD
the
for that
memes
game.
we can make a role swap happen to get Bondi versus Seer.
We do need
so-
Bondi versus Seer. That
Yeah.
shit is very important. But yeah, Lane Zero, Eaters of Glue, I think are the easy favorite.
Yeah.
Yep.
You cannot. I feel like this is a difficult team where you cannot like look at them and be like, oh, they will no. You can't really make any assumptions on where they're going to be other than number 1 or number 2. And with that, I think a solid number 2 would be KFC chicken legs.
Okay.
I think I like all the other teams. I think really the one that for me vies the 2 that vie for that number 2 spot are Akuma Strikers and TRK Emperors. So I'm interested to see y'all's opinions on that.
Okay. Vega, give us some takes between these 3 teams: the Chicken Legs, Emperors, and Akuma Strikers. Who really contends for that second S tier slot?
I am. This may be the hot take I make that I would have. Akuma to me, I think might be the best team in this. And that's based on previous competitive experience. Like they're a team that has won stuff. I don't think that their point value necessarily represents how good they are in a competitive environment.
Okay.
So I that would be my lock it in right now. I'm predicting Akuma to win CEO. Or I'll eat something really hot.
Okay, heard.
Okay.
I'm locking it. Flip
All right.
it. I do think that the 2 through 4 is all the Val said. I think honestly,
Yeah.
like it from a just like stepping away from me, like making a hot take. It would not surprise me if any of those 4 won. I think those are the clear top 4 in this group.
Yeah.
But I do think that when everyone is this good, being good, like having competitive experience and playing together as a team matters a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree, especially at this tier.
Here's I will I'm gonna look to make a compromise
Okay.
with Less Vega here. How about
Okay.
we put Akuma Strikers, KFC, and the Emperors all in the bubble tier? Since we know Lane Zero is certified top 2, to me at
Yeah,
least. I
I'm
feel
fine
like
with
we all
that.
agree
I'm
with
fine
that.
with that.
I think we put the other 3 in bubble tier because it just feels more fair. So Lane Zero keeps their S tier spot just because.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I'm okay with that.
Give me a little bit of commentary on this Team Fried Chicken roster. What makes them different, more lethal, less lethal than the Team Fried Chicken roster that we saw in Executive?
They have Earl Faker.
They do have Earl Faker.
They do have Earl Fate. They have LBLCS Faker. But I think that the big thing is there's no weak spot. Even when a player has to step out, there's no weak spot, right?
Mhm.
There is. I feel like for a very long time, when especially when KFC was like kind of dominating financial, the vibe was that their ADC I think was Sushi Monster. Great guy,
Mhm.
awesome ADC, maybe not the guy like the player on the roster, right?
Mhm.
KFC had such an insane roster between Earl, Gatatsu, or Sao Klein. The jungler, Shady Gecko.
Mhm.
Always dominating. There was always a strong player in every role around him.
Mhm.
But this time, I believe RG is the ADC,
Mhm.
and that is a terrifying player. Period.
Yeah.
Maybe might honestly have more spotlight on them than Earl King.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited because this is an insane ADC group.
Yeah, it's
Just
actually
to
kind of crazy.
say,
Yeah, it is crazy. Yeah.
dude, Duolingo Owl. I don't
Duolingo
even
Owl
know
was
if he's
playing jungle.
ADC. He's playing jungle.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah.
Toad, I think. Then Toad.
Yeah, I think Toad is the
That's
Duolingo
Toad.
Owl, my truly my beloved another one of like one of the third out of 4 players on my draft league roster. Absolutely truly my betrothed when it comes to the Rift.
We got one more to mention here in a bit too.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like,
we do.
yeah, we're
Yes,
gonna
we
get to
do.
this in a second. But
Yes, we
yeah,
do.
I think KFC, this roster just feels like this. It feels like not that they like, not in like any derogatory, but like they like min maxed the KFC rosters for where they are. Right, you have the
Mhm.
KFC roster that has all the big hitters,
Mhm.
and then let it be known, right? Think about it like this: the KFC roster that is like has all the big hitters is in the top league,
Mhm.
and then the KFC roster that has the rest of them is in the league just below that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's insane to me. So I'm really curious and excited to see how they come out this season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. Let's go over to Tuxedo Magnum, who I think has some of the fewest well-known players. Maybe I don't know the rosters like immediately off the top of my bat, but Tuxedo Magnum. Tell me a little bit about this team here in CEO.
Awesome logo.
Yeah, great logo.
I don't care if it's AI.
I mean,
That logo's
like
fucking
looking
awesome.
at the roster, you're kind of looking at like a lot of these kind of like low, like it's a team kind of comprised of like low to mid diamonds and not necessarily having that
That's
one
flat player.
Mm-hmm.
flash player, which I think particularly an executive always like scares me a little bit just because like the hands difference when you've got like a Seer or a Zelius or someone like that, like it really kind of shines I think in this league in particular. So I think for me I would start by putting Tuxedo kind of in like that. Like I don't think there's necessarily a dark horse team
Mm-hmm.
of the
Well,
8, but like I think they'd probably be in like that underdog category for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
maybe
I agree with
they're one of those teams that could be like we play really well as a team, even if our like our individual pieces don't shine. but we just don't know that just yet. And don't worry, we're coming back to the rats. We will be coming back, Memer Six.
We circle back. We get there from time to time. You know what? Why don't we just go there right now? The rats
Yeah.
team. Tell me a little bit more about some of these players and how we expect them to show up, especially in comparison to what we just talked about with like having a couple of these like really high ranked players, in comparison to Tuxedo Magnum.
Yeah, I mean Toad. I this isn't the same Toad because I know a different Toad was on the Naughty Narwhals roster up until league start, and then they ranked out of financial, so they couldn't actually be the support for that roster. But this is a different Toad. The splash player of the roster, at ADC, I believe.
Mid lane.
Mid lane.
He's a former GM, like a Nivea one trick at one point. Hasn't been playing ranked as much this season. Should be really good. I've had to scrim this team like multiple times this off season. They're really good. They again, a lot of the players kind of like lower in the point totals. I don't think it's like super indicative. Like we know Memer Six is a super strong support
Yep.
master. New to LBLCS, but they've been killing it in the Blue Otter draft for a couple seasons now.
Yep.
That should be one of the strongest bot lanes, I think. Duo, we know him as an AD carry, but I think like he prefers the jungle. And unlike his last time in LBLCS, where he was playing jungle for 3 losing lanes, this time he should have a lot more. And like he's said it, like that's not even a dig on his team. Like he has mentioned it. So like he should have a lot more opportunity to shine in the jungle. So I think that they should be really strong as well.
Yeah,
I think.
Duo was also
just
playing,
go ahead, Val. Go ahead,
Duo was
Val.
playing support for TDS as well.
Yeah.
Last season, right?
He played
If I remember
TDS
Renaissance.
versus he played on TDS as support versus me at least in the week 1 matchup, and it was just an absolutely terrifying player.
Yeah, great team.
Vega, you're going.
Oh, I was gonna say Memer Six also, and it's something that doesn't show up when you're just like looking at the roster. But Memer Six has one of like the best minds for the game. Like if you ever hear them talk about like macro and like strategy and stuff like that, like I think that's something we talked about earlier of like teams having good competitive like experience and stuff like that. Like Memer Six does a very good job of keeping his team like on the same page. But I think it'll be huge for this roster.
Yeah. Memer Six is my goat for sure. So I definitely expect a lot of success out of that team. I'm pretty excited to see how they play out. Let's talk about these 3 remaining teams here. So we've got Panther Core's TBD. Probably we'll see if we can get our name change ticket in. And see if Seer is asleep.
Why
when
not
I
just
put it
Panther
in.
Core?
Because that would be stupid.
You go like a henchman.
Panther Core Henchman kind of goes
Panther
hard.
Core
no?
Henchman, it goes hard.
It goes hard.
Kiko calling me out for having many goats and beloveds. Yes, that's absolutely true. I am.
It's a harem.
I'm a lover, not a hater. Well, I'm definitely a hater. I'm a
harem.
lover, not a fighter. I also fight a
Jackie
lot.
Boy
You're also a
harem.
I'm a lover. I'm a lover
Are
in a
you
lot of
gonna-
other things too.
Yeah, I was gonna
It's
say,
a
I think
complicated
it's-
person. You know?
Yeah, I'm a real Renaissance man, a real jack of all trades, if you will. Let's talk about Owls
stop.
Esports. So what do we got looking out for this team? Where do we feel like they might slot in? We've got 3 remaining teams. We only have 2 remaining slots in bubble, which is sort of like one of the constraints that we put on ourselves to make these things a little bit more interesting. So one of these teams will not make it into our bubble tier. They'll fall into either the underdog or the dark horse tier.
Or Versa.
Versa is in the Lions. Then I think Owls is my dark horse because
Okay.
if I have my facts straight, the 20-point player on Owls Esports probably won't play a game for them.
Really?
Is there as a sub. So I think they are a team that I just have to see it to believe it. Because even if you take that out of the equation, they're still kind of in the realm of, I feel like they will put up a stronger front than they'll be stronger on paper than like a Panther Core TBD or a Tuxedo or like on par with a Tuxedo Magnum or Kuma Strikers, right? So I think, and these are guys who play a lot outside of LBLCS. I believe this is a collegiate team that has been ported over to the LBLCS, and they are
I think
strong
that's
as
true.
hell as well. So and Verja is someone who I just trust. I think that's a guy who can just have a solid season,
Yeah.
regardless of the competition.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see kind of how that turns out.
Versa's got like a ridiculous amount of competitive experience, and I feel like it's like one of the ADCs where just like we've always missed playing together, like as like a lane matchup. So maybe one of these days, I'll have to meet him on the same side once. Also a Panther Core alum, played on the fated PC Ronin season. We won't talk about. We've got a couple more teams here. We've got Naughty Boys and then the Panther Core TBD roster. Somebody start us off with one of these, with one of these teams, and start giving me some takes about them.
I mean, I know you said to start off with one of them, but I kind of feel pretty similar like about both of these teams. Like
Okay.
I think both of them kind of fit that like the underdog tier for me because
Mhm.
you've got really well,
Yep.
I guess in the case of Naughty, you have two really strong pieces in Zelius and Haversack, and then Panther Core you've got Seer, obviously. Super strong mechanical players. But then after that, you've got like I don't know, they're coming up with the super top tier players, right? Like, and that's
Mhm.
not to say that Unkindness and Zebra and Ruffian aren't going to be able to hang here. Or, I mean, Jack, we've seen you in old exec before. Ducky Lord, very good player.
Mhm.
But I think the ceiling in my mind for these two teams is like how far those two players are able to like get enabled on their respective teams. And especially if like Seer's in the jungle, like I'd love to see Seer playing like the carry style picks, you know,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
get myself ahead and win the game.
Leap-ins.
Like please don't put Seer on Sejuani.
Dude, let's see if Sejuani.
Sejuani looks good here.
Yeah.
I think that maybe the thing that you're missing is that no, it doesn't really matter what Seer's playing. It's going to be a carry champion, no matter what the actual champion is. So we put Seer on Sejuani. You'll see some pretty devious gameplay. Yeah, he's coming and saying Maokai Sedge only this season. Unironically, yeah, I believe that. He's been playing a lot of Skarner too. So
I'm gonna challenge that a bit, not with PCTBD though, because I think you're nail on head with that one. I think I love Jack, but I do to touch on PCTBD. I do think CEO is more. I think the difference between CEO and executive this season is that executive to me is very much like a very high end financial effects, right? It's like it
mm,
basically the top cut of every single financial season and made that its own league. Whereas I think CEO is more akin to the executive of old and the C and even CEO. Um,
mhm.
so I do think Duck. I think we were talking about mirrors earlier. Duck, I think, is genuinely, Bear kind of saying I'm the bar. Duck is the bar.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I
mean, has
completely
been
agree with that.
he's a guy who he's either gonna be giving you all he can put together on Gwen and Camille and kind of really bringing the fight to these financial top laners,
Mhm.
or you're gonna see that guy on Ornn, on Shogath, Malphite, and doing his motherfucking thing.
And like he like
Uh,
solo killing challengers like on those picks too.
Solo killing it.
He is the bar when it comes to top
He's the bar.
laners.
And let me glaze Jack for a bit.
Oh
We
dang
can
it.
say what we will, say what you will about the man, but god damn it, he makes an impact. And
Seen him steal
does
Baron.
that matter who's in front? He can even steal Baron.
The
He
Maokai Q.
really punches up, right? I think there are certain players who are like able to like match. Jack is just in a perpetual state of punching up, regardless of who he's playing against, which is
That's
a
actually not a
compliment.
compliment.
Yeah, it's like a
Jack
it's
is worse than
compliment.
anyone he will ever
He's worse
face.
than everyone. He's always going to be rated lower than whoever he plays against. He's like the reverse mirror.
If you put Jack in economy, I guarantee you there are people who will find a way to be like, I don't know if Jack will be able to hang. I'm just saying, man.
We're gonna pull up that clip of Jack hooking his Nautilus into 5 people and then being like, "Oh,
Yeah,
But
it's fun.
and on the opposite side of that, Naughty Boys to me, I do understand the angle of like, oh, Zelius and Haversack, I think are kind of the higher ranked players. The three guys that aren't Zillies and Haversack. Zebra went to back-to-back finals with PC and kind of a more wild, I'd say a stronger
Mm-hmm.
executive, and also had a strong season with Naughty Boys
Mm-hmm.
twice. Once got them into the nearly got them into the finals in a season where Lost Cause and Past Prime were in there, and then did that again, but I think they lost round one to a really solid team. I don't remember who they lost round one to that season, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And Ruffian, the Mac and Cheese Club season happened.
Happened.
Uh, it happened. Great memes from that one, but I think him and Unkindness probably have the most to prove
Mm-hmm.
in a competing with executive standpoint. But Zebra, it feels like, oh my god,
Yeah, you're forgetting about the Zebra Unkindness role
oh
swaps, aren't
my
you? So Zebra
god,
swapping out of the jungle into the top lane, and then
into the
Unkindness
top
getting
lane.
bumped over from top lane
To
to the other
support.
end of the roster as support.
I mean, well, okay. So my point, I'm gonna hold my point about Zebra, but I do think my point about Ruffian and Kindness, they do have the most to prove because I think they are
Mm-hmm.
fighting. This will be a fight, and I'm really, really interested to see. I would argue Naughty Boys is a bubble team, though. I feel like
Okay.
there's synergy there, and they have, to me, they have more splash players than PC TBD, and they have more players who are used to the environment that they'll be playing in.
Okay. Vega, you would be our tiebreaker then. Do you feel like Naughty Boys is an underdog team or a bubble team?
I'm comfortable with them being a bubble team. I think the points that Val makes to it, I agree with. I think that the
Mm-hmm.
pieces that at a glance would look like they are lower on this team actually are probably more akin to playing in this league than it would appear at first glance.
Okay, sounds good. In that case, that rounds out the last 8 teams from our complete roster of 80, and we're just ticking over the 2-hour mark here. I am sincerely looking forward to seeing how this plays out. We don't have any predictions for games of the week for week 1. Our expectation is to aim to get a show in about every other week. On Sundays is our sort of set day. So please bring an empty stomach and a head full of takes every time we go live for these booth episodes. We are super stoked to do them, and maybe we'll try to get another booth cast in at some point when the stars align and our schedules have some mutual free time with this game that's not already being streamed. So with that being said, the VOD for this will be up, and when we do our remaining episodes, we'll make sure to revisit our tier list to see how our predictions are shaking out and exactly how wrong we were. So with that being said, with my fellow co-hosts here, we've got Vega, Lestforce, and Valentine. Any final words for the audience?
Just thanks everybody for tuning in. Excited for another season. Excited to do a ton more episodes, and our first day is tomorrow, so super excited to see how this first week plays out. See where we're wrong, where we're right. Good luck, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's only fun to come on here and yap if there's people in the chat to disagree with us, right? So just thank you everyone for tuning in, and good luck in week 1. Except if you are old man land elderly Zoomers, unfortunately, can't wish you good luck.
Actually, I wish you good luck if you're old man, unless you're old man land period, because we play versus everybody in week 1 as well. Love you guys, but like not this week.
Yeah. So it sounds like our final sign off is love everybody. Thank you for joining in. Unless you're Old Man Land this week, in which case you can get some love from us next week and next time we go live. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Have a good and safe weekend. Let's get ready for this delicious week ahead of us as we call for the check and sign off for the day. And remember, it takes 2 to tango. Bye bye.
Peace.